at that point, you know, in that, there's no effort required.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
It helps to be with friends
Right.
doing that. It really does.
There's nothing you can do to become what you already are. You already are the truth. It's not something you become because you've learned something new. You've always been the truth. It's very good news Ramana Maharshi brings us. Very good news. Bodies come and go. You have never moved an inch. Hi.
Hi, Bob. It's very good to see you again.
Yes, you very much.
In regards to the topic of being, how do you put it? We can only be, you know, you put it in the negative. We can't not be, how did you say it?
Be what you cannot not be.
So, if that's true, then we are already always what we cannot not be.
That's right.
And yet, I actually did meet up with C.R. Ramana
Right.
down in Encinitas a month or so ago. And he took me through his technology and brought me back to that beautiful, familiar, impersonal place. And there is a quite a shift in consciousness between the personal, conditioned, separate person, one, and the impersonal place, which is, you know. And so, and yet both now, I am already, say it again?
You're already that which you cannot not be.
It's the double knot that I keep.
You're right. It stops the mind, though, doesn't it?
So it's
I
true.
have to give credit. This is a Karl Rentz, a German fellow who gives satsang. It's his baby, you know, this be that you cannot not be. But I can't help but plagiarize. But I guess I should give him credit, you know, for that showing up in that mind.
So if it's true that I cannot not be what I am,
Yeah.
then even now, with the conditioned mind dominant again instead of the universal one, I am still being consciousness playing with this misidentification.
Tell me a little bit more about the shift in consciousness you experience.
Well, it's just one of those tastes that we all get where it's just so natural.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just said to him, oh God, it's such a relief to be back here again to this place where I'm not Molly. I'm more than Molly.
Yeah, but you realize, I have to tell you, my experience of you is totally different than it was the last time we spoke.
I was a little bit in release.
Right.
So that's
Yeah,
just what
I
happens
really
when that comes
enjoyed
up.
The peace that I feel
Yes.
from you. Right
Yes.
now. So that's present and available always as simply who you are. And it's only when we get confused in a way and take ourselves to be something else that it seems like the consciousness shifts back and forth, but actually awareness doesn't move. I remember when I first started getting into this, there's two words, consciousness and awareness. And I says, well, and I was looking for my new identity, but since I was been told that I'm not the body or the mind, and I said, well, which am I? Am I an aware being in a field of consciousness, or am I a conscious being in a field of awareness? Which am I? And so that made a nice little dichotomy for the mind to play with. When I started reading the book I Am That by Nisargadatta Maharaj, he defined these terms, at least for the purpose of the book. Probably in the thesaurus, if you said consciousness and awareness, it would be they'd be synonyms. They wouldn't. One would define the other. you play the definition game and get in the dictionary and go in this big circle with different words until you realize everything's dependent on everything else for meaning.
Could you remind me? I read the book, but I don't remember the
He
differentiation.
basically said that, you know, without having to say this word all the time, that you're the awareness that's aware of being conscious of objects. That's the way he defined it. And he said basically consciousness is what occurs when awareness touches an object. Then there's the consciousness of the object. But you could easily twist, you know, words are you know, we could memorize that and make it a part of our brand new belief system about how it is. But really, we don't have to have a belief system about anything, including and especially how it is, for this to be exactly the way it is. And sometimes it's a distraction. We take the words to be the thing, you know. Of course, you're not a thing.
May I ask you a related question?
Yes.
I notice that there's time, and this is a story that my mind makes up to explain the inner experience I'm having, and that is that there's time when my mind becomes overshadowed. My presence becomes, no, it doesn't. Wait a minute. The words here. What are the true words? There's times when I feel that parts of my subconscious or unconsciousness are arising to become conscious in my experience. And then I find that immediately I identify with those painful feelings. And now from having a practice with this, I more readily fall back onto presence and hold space for those energies coming through.
Right.
However, I still feel those energies very intensely, and I hear their story of how real and serious it is.
Yeah. And that'll happen for some time.
Okay, and so there is some degree of overshadowing of the neutrality of presence during that time.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's because you're giving them equal weight.
Oh, so.
Yeah.
Yes,
you start giving the relative. You say, well, you know, I see people do this all the time. There's the relative and there's the absolute. And what the mind does is it creates a dichotomy called, on this side we have the relative and on this side we have the absolute. It's not the way it's made up as near as I can grok or glean.
The absolute
permeates. Is the context, and the relative is just a mere appearance, a phenomenal activity that it has its time within the unmoving, timeless presence that you are.
And so one of the inquiries that I ask is, what doesn't arise?
What doesn't arise? Yeah, what doesn't move?
Right.
If it moves, you know, just as a rule of thumb, if it moves, it's not you.
If it changes.
Yeah, if it changes, moves in any way, it's not you.
And yet can you speak to any tool that I could use besides who am I, about when this energy rises from the unconscious part of myself, and it's so powerful.
Finally, you'll have to ask the question, who thinks they need a tool?
Yeah.
Finally, you'll be ready to ask that question. Because right now you're trying to manipulate the whole thing from a position of being the tool user.
Mm-hmm.
And you can look and see whether that's who you are really. Do you need anything, including a tool?